Hi there, it's Scott from Limitless. You're about to listen to the second in a series of podcasts with Dave Sanderson from Miracle on the Hudson. If you have not listened to the first one, I'd recommend you do that first. In this session, Dave's going to talk about how he made his transition.
Well, he here's the backstory to that backstory. That when I was head of security for those 5+ years in my time, when I would pick him up at the helipad or the airport or wherever I was picking him up, when we started a conversation, he'd always said, he's still working for that company.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you got to get out of that. You guys, you got to go to work for yourself. You'll never be totally free until you work for yourself. And I would come up with excuses, and Canley, not a good guy to give excuses to, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't put up with much excuses, and Canley, he knows when you're not telling the truth. So, there's no excuses left. So he was giving me some point. He said, call me when you get to LA, right? I'll sort of coach you on what you're going to be looking at. And he was giving me coaching. So that's what I knew that I had to do. So Tony's whole thing, right, is taking action.
Mm-hmm.
So, I knew I had to take action, but I was making a lot of money.
Yeah.
I was making a ton of money, and my wife's global world view, her number one, life is about certainty. She likes certainty. She says,
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm going to have a house. I'm going to have health insurance. I'm going to have money. And she always had that, right?
Yes.
At a high level, right? And here you want to go off and do what? Right?
Yeah.
So I had to it took me 5 years, Scott, to figure this game plan out. It wasn't immediate. Now I'm speaking and doing this and doing the Tony stuff, right? And I was all over the board, but I knew I had to get out.
Okay.
So finally, about 5 years into it, and it was on the 5-year anniversary, this happened. CBS did a piece on my family. It was actually the first time she ever let CBS in the house. We did this piece and it was on the 5th anniversary. I was on the evening news with Scott Pelley, right? So they followed me from Charlotte to New York to New Jersey. So I was in New Jersey on the 15th of January of that year and doing interviews and just doing my stuff. And about midnight, I got back to the hotel and I called her. I said, hey, how's everything going? She said, hey, did Oracle call you today? I said, no. I knew I was going to be off. I was going to do my thing, right? I'm on TV all over the place. I said, did Oracle call you? She goes, no. She goes, maybe it's time for you to move and do this thing. I think she had to see it, right? She had to sort of see how. And so I promised her, I said, if I do this, I'll make sure you have health insurance, you'll have a house. Your lifestyle won't change.
Yeah.
Mine has. I mean, I don't take these big cars anymore, these nice trips, right? But I said, so I had to give her certainty while I was in uncertainty.
So when you're balancing – Dave, when you're balancing your family's needs and wants, as you transition, you talked about Tony being, a good mentoring influence. And so can you speak a little bit more to that mentorship piece? Not all of us will have access to Tony, in his Florida mansion and all those kinds of things but
I don't have access to that either.
Sorry?
I don't have access to that. I don't have access to that either. But I think everybody should have a mentor. It doesn't have to be a Tony Robbins. I was just blessed to be around that environment. Right? I mean, I have other mentors now, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if I ever needed anything at that level, I could, if I needed to, I could probably get to him some way to ask him a question. But I don't do that anymore. I mean, I've grown to a level now where I'm mentoring other people.
Yes.
So I think, I think everybody, especially through their life, probably does, but don't realize they have mentors that are guiding them, giving them guidance. And everybody needs a mentor. I mean, Michael Jordan had coaches, right? I mean, Tom Brady, who's the number one quarterback probably in the history of the NFL, has got a nutritionist, his personal trainer, his coaches. He's got coaching people. So the best need coaches and mentors. How about you, right? Why don't you have them?
Yeah.
And right now it's so easy to get. I mean, unfortunately, unlike when I was a young man and all you had was the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? You had
Yep.
to make network connections. Now you have the internet.
So how do
you get hold of anybody.
Yeah, how would you recommend going about, the average the person, who's thinking about transitioning, finding a mentor? I mean, can you think of any sources that you've seen that have worked for people to find that kind of?
Yeah, and I just sort of referenced that. I mean, I talk about virtual references and virtual mentors because you don't have to now, know somebody directly. You can go out and read their books. You can go online. You can contact them by LinkedIn or Facebook. You can get a hold of anybody. And I have people. I just had one a few moments ago from beautiful Gulf, Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Just messaged me and asked me if I would mentor or talk to a police officer up in that area.
Yeah.
So I mean, so the question is most people make it a should, right? Like Tony says, you got to make it a must.
Yeah.
You seek out and model those who view the outcome you want, and you can get a hold of those people in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I still contact people. I mean, I contacted a couple CEOs yesterday that I didn't know.
Very good.
You got to take the action.
There's a great Canadian mentorship story. A guy in the 1970s. He was black from a black family. It took financial management at U of T. Wanted a mentor. This is 1970s. So he drives down to someplace in Kansas where Berkshire Hathaway offices are of Warren Buffett, and he sat in Warren Buffett's office for 8 days in a row without an appointment. And on the 8th day, Warren Buffett came out and said, I've got to just meet the man who thought it was worth 8 days of his time to meet me. And the guy's name is Michael Lee Chen, who does AIC mutual funds and was in 2014 was around the 20th richest person in the world through AIC mutual funds. And again, it's because Warren Buffett took him under his wing. And Michael had actually made extraordinary efforts to find worthwhile mentors along the way, similar to what you're doing. So just for the Habitudes audience there, just, hang yourself with people who are willing to open doors for yourself.
Well, one of the things I talk about, Scott, is proximity is power, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to be around it. And, it's interesting that Warren Buffett story, because when I was speaking in Omaha last few months ago, I asked if I could go to the steakhouse where Warren Buffett goes to.
Yeah.
Just in case the dude was around, right? I did get my picture taken with his cutout. But, you got to put yourself around proximity to these people. That's why if you go to these seminars, right? If you want to be around, go to the seminar, right? Be in that energy. And that's how I started with Tony. He didn't know me from Adam, right? I was one of those guys jumping up and down, doing that.
Yep.
And then a couple years later, here I am in service.
So you made you made the 5-year transition, Dave, with your wife's blessing and your family's, doing well with it. You've got a story that, some would consider, it can be one of those moment stories. We have an attention deficit society, it's now 9 years out since the event. But you've managed to breathe life into the business. And so a lot of people who we chat and coach to have something that's of a shorter term passion, but they aren't able to see how it could be viable down the long term. How have you made your business, Dave Sanderson Speaks, viable as the story recedes into history?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's out there as part of history. But as you're right, it starts fading a little bit as you hear further out. Now we're coming into the 10th anniversary, and the movie came out last year. So there's other things that cycle through it. But I've really moved away from the Miracle on the Hudson side because what I'm finding when I go out and speak and interact with people is two big lessons people want to talk about: how to really build your own personal leadership. How do you have personal leadership to be able to handle this stuff? And second, how do you grow from a traumatic life event? So I looked at this, I'm like, I can have more impact with people, really not talking a lot about the miracle, but talking about how I use that experience in leadership roles in building leadership and also growing. That's why I did my TED Talk at Queen's University in Kingston. Mm-hmm. I wanted to get that message out there so I could help people. So I think what I tell people is, you've got to keep your mind open. And one of the ways you do that is one of the things I just mentioned. You put yourself around people who can give you better information. You go to seminars. Right? You get in contact with people. Let them mentor you. Let them give you some information and challenge you. That's why I have a team now from all over the country and all over now, even Canada. I've got two assistants in Canada to give me a different centric perspective on what I need to be doing to really expand and be able to impact more people's lives. Yeah, this is the hub, but if you watch me and next time you see me speak, you see me go on a whole different tangent right now because I need to get to people's hearts in a way to help them to grow and survive.
So talk about that. You're, that 30-year industry guy, and a lot of folks are reluctant to take that energy step to break away because you know what, the ego, the paycheck, the being needed is so entrenched in what you've done so far. So why am I going to shed that skin that served me, protected me, grown me over time for something that, could be a skeleton that doesn't put meat and bones back on like it could, my gosh, fail. Talk about personal leadership in terms of what an individual would need to have as personal leadership to actually take that step.
Well, I'll give you two different perspectives. Number one of the things that Tony teaches everybody is if you're going to make a commitment, we talk about making it a must. You make it a must and you burn the boats. You have to burn the boats. So you know what? I'm all in, and I'm going to sacrifice and make it happen. So number one, you got to burn the boats. But second, what happened to me, it sort of made me start figuring out how to make this shift. Is I got in touch with the CEO of a company in Dallas, Texas called Halftime. Mm-hmm. And it's based on a book by Bob Buford called Halftime, about when you hit to that point in your career or your life where you've hit it, you're doing well, but all of a sudden you realize there's something left out. I'm missing something, right? Money's not the only thing. And I started interacting with the CEO of Halftime, and he invited me to come out to Dallas. I, on my own dime, went to Dallas, right? I tell people that too. You got to invest in yourself. Yeah. And I did that going to Toronto, and that's how I'm a member of the Hero Club now. Doing work with Jeffrey Hazelin, I invested in myself and made that commitment. So I went to Halftime, and all of a sudden started realizing the mentality of all these leaders have made that corporate shift to entrepreneurship, or how to help non-for-profits or dig ditches in Africa, whatever it is. And all of a sudden I'm like, I can do this. I hit that Halftime wall, right? Where so I tell people, if you want to make the move, you got to burn the boats. And know all of a sudden it's like this is a halftime of your life. You got a whole another half of your life. What are you going to do to add significant value and enjoy the process of doing it? Yeah. And enjoy the process is the biggest part of that.
So the point there that you really brought up is, how quickly do you have to burn your boats? In your case, you said it took 5 years before you made that complete detachment. So is it okay to have a slow burn before the boats actually disappear?
You got to have a game plan. And that's one thing it took me some time to figure out. And some of the people who were around me, some of the leaders that we're talking to, I'm not talking about Tony, I'm talking about other leaders, whether it was in the Red Cross or corporate leaders or some of my clients. And they knew what I was doing. I mean, I was very public, right? Heck, I'm in the media pretty much every week, so I'm doing something. But they all told me, make sure you have a plan, right? Make sure you have a plan before you get out, because when you make that cut, it's basically for good. And you better have a plan, because if you don't, then all of a sudden you go back down, and then it's going to be your mental side and emotional side is going to work on you. So I took my advice from all these people who are telling me, have a plan before you get out.
And the reason, Dave, when you and I chatted for the first time a month or so ago, I just instantly connected with you because you're real. And so in that spirit, when you talk about a plan, that's a great term, but what are some of the key elements that you seem for a plan to actually have value as you go and execute it? What worked for you?
Well, what worked for me is this, and I went back to something basic that I learned from one of my first Tony Robbins events. Mm-hmm. Is he talks about the 6 human needs, and everybody's got these driving needs, right? And one usually a primary need. So what I started putting my plan together, Scott, was based on the 6 needs of, from certainty to variety to contribution to growth to significance and connection or love. So I made my plan based on, does the criteria meet these 6 needs? Mm-hmm. So everything that I did, when we go speaking, can I meet those 6 needs of speaking? Yes, I can. How about writing a book? Yes, I can. So I started putting the plan together based on the 6 needs, and my primary need had shifted. Because most salespeople, and maybe you don't see this in Canada, but I see it a lot, still see it a lot, salespeople are mostly personal significance driven. I got to get the number, right? And I got to provide. If I don't get the number, I may be cut. So it's all about me getting the number. Once I made the shift, and this happened pretty much right after the plane crash, where, it was all still about getting the quote and the number. I said, you know what? I've got to take care of my teams better, So I started focusing on giving them the support, letting them, checking my ego at the door, letting them do it. Good. So I started shifting my personal significance to contribution and growth. And all of a sudden, as soon as I did that, man, I'll tell you what, everything opened up. So I based my initial plan on the 6 human needs that Tony talked about in each one of these areas, and put my plan based on that.
Very cool. So when you've got that plan and you're executing it, and you're having some good months, but you're having some some, oh my gosh, what have I done moments. I remember starting up my wildlife sanctuary and my mortgage was $1,400 and I had $500 coming into the, in revenue. I had to go bartend again just to make ends meet. This was a few years ago. I know I lost sleep, and sleep was sometimes a scary thing. So now 30 years later, when we have somebody who's got a strong career identity, strong ego, strong needs identification with the position, and they take the break and they hit their first speed bump or second speed bump, and they're going, man, I'm going to retreat. I'm going to stop the boats burning. I'm going back. What are some of the coping strategies as far as personal leadership that you could suggest for folks to, stay the course, to keep on going?
Well, that's a great question, because I hit that. I've hit that a number of times, but I tell you, the one time I hit it probably 3.5 years ago when I started to do pretty well, right? See, I'm a sales guy from heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I could drive revenue, right? And revenue solves a lot of problems until you don't take care of the back end, the payables and receivables and all that stuff. And I wasn't getting collections. I wasn't getting receivables. So here I am trying to figure all this thing out. So I was driving, but I couldn't get it. So I hit that whole road. And one of the things that I learned, once again, not from Tom Hawkins and all these people, right, or you can't fail unless you quit, right? If you just keep persisting through it, right? You have to, and that's why I talk about persistence in my book. It's about persistence, right? If you quit, you lost. But if I keep going, like my dad taught me before he died, Scott, the stock market was going out of control in 2009. It was horrible. Yep. I said, and he was on his last days. He had maybe another 2 years left. And we were talking about this because he was talking about my finances, right? Because he said, don't sell anything. If you sell, you lose. Just hold on and ride the tide. He said, this would happen during the Great Depression when I was growing up. Same thing.
Yeah. No.
He told me less about persistence, hanging in there, right? Just focusing on the outcome instead of all the things that are going on.
And so maybe relying on your mentors that you've
that's right.
cultivated along the way, that you're not alone kind of piece.
And the second thing that I've done, and I tell people, is I've done this in the last year, which has changed everything, is getting yourself around a mastermind group.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm with a group of 10 guys now out of Nashville, Tennessee, and every Monday we get together and we beat each other up, right? We go after it. And they hold me to account. But they give me their strategies on how to handle these situations. Like I had that situation about accounts receivables and payables and things. So get yourself around a mastermind group. And that's one of the things that I'm starting to do now is people have asked me to do that. So I'm starting to build one, and we're going to be sort of launching that in the next 6-7 weeks and being able to help people like they've helped me in the past, paying it forward.
Very cool. Hey, you've got something going on Amazon right now too, don't you?
I'm really excited. That opened up, once again, that when things you think are not opening up, things open up, pathways open up. And that opened up with me in November. And I'm very fortunate that I was contacted by a gentleman, an assistant to one of the people. His name's Gary Vaynerchuk. Mm-hmm. And one of his people way down, it's not Gary. He just emailed me, he said, check this thing out. So I said, okay. He sent me a video clip of him speaking in Copenhagen, and it was about the power of voice. The next technology wave is coming is the power of voice, AI, where you can just talk to things and things will do things for you, right? Mm-hmm. He said, you got to get on this wave. You got to get your own program on this Amazon Alexa platform. I said, what are you talking about? So he walked me through it, and I contacted the guy, and now I have a daily show. It's 5 minutes. It's a skill. It's called Enable a Skill, right? Mm-hmm. Called Dave Sanderson Declassified. And what I do is either myself or someone like you and me will get on. And we'll take one topic in 5 minutes, declassify it. So instead of having this big topic of, how do you handle this? We're going to talk about having persistence and what does it take to get persistence in 5 minutes. And it's out there on Amazon Echo right now. You enable the skill. Every day it will come up and you can hear great wisdom. And I check out everybody's wisdom on this, right? Because I've learned this stuff all the time. That's where I get a lot of my content.
Well, you know what? You were just telling me about that today for the first time, so I'm going to make sure I subscribe to catch that, because it seems like you've got an awful lot to share. Folks,
I'll have you on it. We'll have you on it, and for 1 week it'll be Scott and Dave show, and I'll let you take 3.5-4 minutes to declassify some strategies for people, and that way you'll give back to different platform audiences.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. People want to get a hold of your book, Moments Matter. Is it Amazon or through your website?
Both ways. You can go to Amazon and get either Kindle or the hard copy version, or go to my website and get the hard copy version. And if you go to my website, DaveSandersonSpeaks.com, I'll personally autograph it for you. If you go to Amazon, you'll get it, and I really am honored if you do that.
Yeah. Dave, I know you're off up to Canada tomorrow, aren't you?
I'm headed to beautiful Waterloo, Ontario tomorrow. It's a Leadership Ontario group out of Waterloo. I'm really excited. I love going to Canada. I go to about 5 to 6 times to Canada a year, and they treat me like gold. I love my Canadian friends.
Fantastic. I'm going to just mention his website one more time, davesandersonspeaks.com. I always, do background checks on folks before I interview. Background checks is not the right word, but I check out what they're doing already. Dave's got 4 videos on there, and normally I'd give a cursory look. I was compelled to watch all of your videos, and including the last one, which I think was a full hour and whatnot. It's just that chock full of stuff. So for folks who are listening here, please migrate over to there and take a look. It is well worth your while. Dave, thanks so much for joining us today, and safe travels tomorrow. And I hope it's actually not too cold for you when you get to Waterloo tomorrow.
Well, I'm excited to go. Thank you for having me, Scott. And one more gift for your audience. If they want to text 393939 and put the word brace to number 4 impact, I'll send them as a gift one of my first videos called Overcoming Adversity in Challenging Times. Free. They just text it, they'll get that. And I would say thank you for listening today.
Fair enough. Now, can you just say that number one more time, so if they were just copying it down?
393939.
Yeah.
And then put the word brace, the number 4, impact.
Okay.
And I'll ask you if you want the video, and then you say yes, and the video will be coming your way.
Very cool. Very nice. All right. Thank you very much, sir. And we look forward to catching you on stage or online again in the very near future.
I'll have you on my show, on my Amazon show, and I'm excited to have you there, my man.
Cheers. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye now.